Hey, welcome back, everybody. I am so glad that you are here. I hope you're enjoying this series. I'm enjoying teaching it, and I'm glad that you are here. Hey, let me do a little review before we get into this week's lesson, and then we'll just kind of jump right in. You see, the big idea in this series is the often overlooked relationship between, number one, good questions compared to good decisions. Good questions, good decisions. Last week, I told you to look in the mirror and ask yourself, ask, then answer honestly, and then act. And then when you come up with that answer, then you got to say what? Really? Really is kind of just double checking yourself. Really, are you telling the truth? Really, are you being honest? So again, you're going to ask, you're going to answer honestly, you're going to act, and then you're going to say to yourself, really? Because again, the purpose of the series is to help us make better decisions so that we have fewer regrets. You see, some things the Spirit leads us, some things it guides us, some things it does, and it does an amazing job. But if we're not careful, we could still be Spirit-filled and make bad decisions. So I'm trying to help you on the spiritual side on Sunday, and now on the human, the practical side on Wednesday. You see, because we aren't the only people that are impacted by our decisions, and we're not the only people impacted by our regrets either. I suggested last week that you would memorize this saying from the book of Proverbs. This is kind of going to be our overarching verse that tethers us to this series, Proverbs 27 and 12. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. In other words, the prudent see the danger and they plan for it. They take refuge, they make adjustments, they back up, they reassess. But the simple just keep walking right off the bridge, right off the pier. And ultimately, they pay the penalty for that. So that's kind of a little recap from last week, just to catch you up. And again, I'm glad you're here. So now let's jump into this week's lesson. And this brings the second question of our series. Remember, there's 5 questions. The second question, which is this week's lesson, is called the legacy question. When I think of legacy, I just think of the totality of somebody's life. Every time you make a decision of any consequences, pause and ask yourself the legacy question, which is, here's the legacy question, okay? What story do I want to tell? When I'm long gone, when I'm old, when I'm decrepit, and people look back at my life and they just say, Tom Durant's, what snapshot is that legacy picture? When this decision, this season of life, this relationship, or the busyness of a transaction is reduced down to a story, what story do I want to tell? Or maybe what story do I want to be told about me? Do I want to be the hero? Or do I want to be the villain? Do I want to be a good example? Or do I want to be a bad example? But here's the good news, everybody. I got great news for you. We get to decide. Yay, I get to decide. But you get to decide one decision at a time. So that's why it's so critical, no matter where you are in life, age, level, status, station, every decision is critical. You write the story of your life one decision at a time. And then when you get through your life, the legacy is all the decisions you made, all the pages you've written, all the sentences you articulate about your life, that becomes your legacy. And people know you by your legacy. Every decision you make becomes a permanent part of your story. If I realize the value of a decision and how it impacts my story, I'm going to pay close attention. I'm going to seek godly counsel. The Bible says that there's safety in the multitude of counsel. I live by a principle in my life. Won't get into that all tonight, but let me just tell you this, okay? Interrupt myself. Is that okay? When we're younger, we have sounding boards of permission. Dad, can I go here? Dad, can I do this? Dad, can I? Dad, Mom, Dad, etc. As we get older, we have what we call sounding boards of permission and protection. So the protection is, hey, I'm vetting my decision. Young, sounding boards of permission. Can I do this? We get older. Come on, we're all adults. Who actually tells you what to do? We don't have to ask nobody. I can do whatever I want. You can do whatever you want. I don't have to ask nobody nothing. Hey, I'm the smartest man in the world. I'm going to make my own decision. Yep, you could. You're right. I think, but the wise, prudent person, the Proverbs is talking about, that we have sounding boards of protection. Hey, let me bounce this off to you, because every decision you make has an outcome. It has a consequence. It has a result. So back to my question, the legacy question, what story do I want to tell? What story do you want to tell about your life? You see, the decision that you're wrestling with now is going to be nothing more than a story that you tell someday. We see it as a decision. But in the context of my teaching in this series, I'm going to tell you it's actually about your story. But here's the challenge. Here's the challenge. We don't normally think of our lives as a story, but they are. The decisions we make in the valleys and eventually the stories that we have and we write is going to be what we tell on the other side. The other side of what? The other side of your legacy. Here's something that's true with all of us. You'd like to be able to tell your entire story without skipping any chapters or having a lie about the details. As I write my story, okay, let me just get personal. As I write my story, I'm a pastor. I'm a dad, I'm a husband, and I hope I'm a good one in all areas. But when I'm old and when I've passed away and I'm with Jesus and saying, hey, life is great, the legacy that I've written, I want every chapter to be inspiring and godly. I don't want anybody to, you know what? Hey, Pastor Durant, yeah, that was a bad time in his life. You need to skip those 4 years. He wasn't in his right mind. He made horrible decisions, illogical. Who knows what he was thinking? Or if those chapters stay in the book, I got to kind of skew the legacy a little bit so you believe in me. No. Let's not do that. Every chapter has to be a chapter of legacy. I don't want to lie about any details in my chapter. One reason I think that we don't do this is because the decisions that we make are at times distracted. We're under pressure. We get emotional at the moment. And I've lived long enough, I've counseled enough people. Hey, when emotions get involved, you better be careful. You ever heard someone say, hey, they go from 0 to 10 in 0.3 seconds? They're talking about emotionally. I mean, it's like red alert. So we all can have emotions. But in those emotional times, again, you're making decisions. Don't make a decision emotionally charged. Don't make a decision in the valley. You see, because emotions are like fog. They cause you to lose your sight of the broader context. What's the broader context? The broader context is really our stories. Your story. When it comes to big decisions, and we're emotionally charged and upset, it's almost impossible to be objective. What is objective? Hey, I say zoom out, okay? In photographer terms, I'll say open the aperture, wide open, and try not to make a decision that you're going to regret. Again, the whole purpose of our series is to make better decisions with fewer regrets. In emotionally charged decision-making environments, we think in terms of our options, not our stories. When we're emotionally upset, our emotions are heightened, we begin to protect us and we attack the other situation, the other person, the other people. And so at those times, we're looking at, hey, what are my options? I got to give a reason, I got to settle the score, I got to slice their legs out from under them to make sure that I'm right. But I'm telling you, hey, slow down. Let's think about our stories. So I would say pause, get your bearings, and consider your story. Again, I'm writing a story, page after page, day after day, month after month. Pause, slow your roll, and consider your story. When I think of legacy, I think of the Old Testament story of Joseph and how a great reminder of a powerful legacy of preserving what he did. You see, Here's what makes his story so relatable. None of this is his fault. Somebody else took control of his story. His story, like parts of our story, they were hijacked or commandeered by evil and selfish people. In this case, family. Often the people closest to us hurt us, upset us, and if we're not careful, they begin to influence the way we write our story. It's called legacy. I think Joseph's story is a story worth telling. It's a story that he decided, one decision and one response at a time. Which brings me back to us, which brings me back to you and I. What story do you want to tell? What story do I want to tell? What story do I want told about me? What story do you want told about you? These are good questions, and if we're going to better ourselves, we have to slow down and ask ourselves these questions. You see, if you've been filled with the Holy Spirit, we're Spirit-filled, we're apostolic. Yes, I'm saved. But there's a human side of me that wants a legacy that people say, you know what? He was a Christian. In his story, his chapters, his pages, his paragraphs, when things came against him like Joseph, he was writing one decision at a time. He never chose the option to make his story look good by being a liar. Joseph sold into slavery, auctioned off. If you don't know the story, let me give you a 60-second backstory. Sold off, bought by a guy named Potiphar. Potiphar trusts Joseph. Potiphar goes away. The wife comes on to Joseph in a sexual manner. Joseph rebuffs her. She gets mad because she's rejected. She tells the husband, hey, your little boy here you bought tried to sexually assault me. Obviously, Potiphar believes his wife. And so Joseph goes to prison. All of which, none of it was true. But she was being vindictive because he rebuffed her. And so Joseph goes to prison. He interprets a dream. Let me fast forward. He becomes the prime minister of Egypt. There's a famine. His family comes in. They don't know it's him. He's disguised. He blesses his family. It's an intriguing story. You should read it someday, okay? I can't read it for you right now. But the point is, I see a lot of us in the story of Joseph, but his godly example of legacy was making right decisions. And he never lied about his story. Long after you've gained everything, long after your life is over, you'll be left with a story that you're A, proud of, or maybe you're not proud of. Maybe there's some chapters you want to skip, you want to tear out. So I say to you today, write a good story. Decide a good one. If you haven't decided on a good one yet, and you don't know what to do, just remember this, okay? Remember this. Your current chapter is just a chapter. It's not the whole story. I heard someone once say in life, hey, your layover is not your destination. You can say, well, I'm having a bad situation, things aren't going good, I'm struggling at work, home, at church. Hey, it's just a layover. Your destination is heaven. Don't judge your life. Don't judge the destination. Don't judge the vacation by the layover. I've flown quite a bit. I've had some horrible layovers. Last October, I was flying home from a conference in Indianapolis. And at 1 or 2 in the morning, I get a text that my flight has been canceled. I'm supposed to get up at 5 in the morning. And I got stranded in Indianapolis. I hitched a ride with some buddies to Nashville. This is on Saturday morning because I could catch a flight out of Nashville Saturday afternoon. I get there. I open the door to get out of my car to the airport. They're dropping me off. And I get a text, your flight's been canceled. And I hustled from Indianapolis to Nashville. So I'm stranded in Nashville till Tuesday. Okay, let me put it in context. I'm supposed to fly out of Indianapolis on Saturday, 5 or 6 Saturday morning. I get home Tuesday night. My layover, not good. But my destination was home. my own bed. I'm an old guy, my own pillow. Yeah, finally, my own pillow. But I didn't write off and judge my whole trip by a layover that wasn't even my fault. So your current chapter, your current layover is not the whole story. So as we wrap up, I want to challenge you to make this decision. Decide that you will write a story that you will be proud to tell. Decide that you will pen a chapter after chapter after chapter, that when people read your legacy, that you would be proud of it. Every time you're faced with a decision of any magnitude, ask this. When this is nothing more than a story I tell, ask this. What story do I want to tell? Then decide accordingly. Remember, you write the story of your life one decision at a time. I just say as a pastor, come on, write a good one. Write a best-selling legacy. The top 10 of the New York Times of your story. Write a good story. Hey, next week we'll pick up right here again. And the third question next week I'm going to unpack is the conscience question. Question number 3 in our series. God bless you. Thank you for being with us.